Hey there, true believers. Welcome to Monstrous. This is your host, Robert Prevost, and today we've got our second episode going, and we're going to be talking with Kimmy Escamilla. Kimmy, how you doing today?
Doing good. Hope you are too.
Good. I'm doing fine. So, I understand that you've had some interesting stuff go on in your life as far as paranormal activity and some other odd things.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I guess ever since like a lot of my stories from like the ghost stories or like monsters, they came from my grandmother. Uh, I don't know if she was trying to scare us or not. I think she told us the stories that her family told her when she was young. That's what my mom told me. Um, and so I heard stories of like El Cucuy or La Llorona. Apparently, me and my brother had different ones because apparently she had different ones for each of us, for me and for my brother. And she told us both about them later, right? But each one, like for me, it was the Cucuy. She always said that the Cucuy's gonna get you, and like I didn't even know what he was. Like, well, what's he gonna do? Like, what's gonna happen if he gets me? I don't even know what that means. Like, I just don't want that to happen. My brother told me that she had told him about La Llorona, and he said that he had the same thing. He said it was supposed to make us go to bed faster, but then he said and then it just kept us up all night because we were scared we were gonna get got by the monsters. And but so I had always grown up with those stories, and ever since I was little, and so once I started getting older and was less scared of those stories, I started looking for my own. And I had found those to be interesting, like horror stories, and little by little they were just like scary stories, but then I started finding like the cryptids and like the paranormal, and I started finding those too, and or at least getting a better understanding as to what those were. And so when I started getting older, I started finding more of those videos, that I started looking for videos and hearing those stories online. So I would sit with my grandmother and I would tell her stories, some of the stories that I heard, and she for the most part had the same reaction to all of them. Like, oh, like, be careful with that, that's scary, or why do you decide to tell me this, in the middle of the night instead of in the morning? But um the main thing, uh, yeah, I like to do that with it. um and at one point and so I was looking for, and I'd heard like some of the more like um chupacabra, and some of the ones that are more, I guess, well known throughout the country and stuff like that.
Right,
And
right.
I'd heard those, but and then I started finding the ones that were more local. One of which, or at least more, a little bit more like with the Spanish influence or something more like that. And I found, I might be wrong with that, but like with direct locations, but I started finding ones that were more local or like more similar to the stories that she would tell us when we were kids. And so when I started telling her those, she said like, oh, that she had heard of some of them, and she would continue, and still the same reaction. She'd let me talk, but then when I told her I heard about one called Lechuza, and I thought, I heard that, from what I understand of it, and I forgot if this was what she had told me about it, maybe when I was younger, or maybe I've heard somewhere else, was that La Lechuza was a witch who had sold her soul to live forever, or to continue to do her, or to continue to do her witchcraft. Um, Also, my grandma spoke complete Spanish, so I don't know if it was perfect Spanish, but I had, so there's some mix ups. There's some not mix ups, but there's some translation with what I understood from what she was saying, because my Spanish isn't that great. It was better when I was talking to her, but she um, and so I told her. Okay. I told her about that I'd heard about La Lechuza, and then she had a different reaction to that. She looked at me, and then she let me finish the story that I had heard about it, and then she told me that now that she never liked La Lechuza, that she never liked, like, doing that. She told me, and then she told me the story about my grandfather, that she said that they would go into that he, his father, and their friends would go into the woods. And I actually got a chance to speak to my mom about this too. I asked her about it, like, a couple days ago about it. and she confirmed that yes, that they would go into the woods to do that. He had told her a little bit about it too, but I think that my grandmother had said that it was scaring her and my mom and my aunt when they were kids, so she wasn't like, maybe don't talk about it too much, right? And she told me that he and his friends would go into the woods. They said they were going to bind her. They said that by binding her, you would see what she actually looked like. You'd see who she was, and
Mm-hmm.
then they could know. And I didn't know exactly what the goal after that was, but it was to know who she was. And they went in, and when I my grandma had mentioned it, she said that she hated doing this. She said that my grandfather and his family would go and do that, and his friends, and like, they would go and do that and be in the woods. And she said she hated being there. She didn't. My grandmother didn't like that kind of stuff to begin with, and she talked
Mm-hmm.
about that trip so normally, like, when he'd go hunting or when he'd go fishing, just like, and that, like, oh, he would go hunting, or oh, he'd go fishing, or oh, he'd go hunting la lechuza. It just seemed normal to her, and she wasn't happy with it because she said it's dirty, it's hot, and stuff like that. And she said the thing she hated the most about it was when they would tie knots. They would all sit at a campfire, and they would be talking to each other, and they'd be tying knots. They said that was how they binded her. That's how to bind her, so you could see what she really looked like. When you'd start hearing the owl in the woods, they would start tying faster, and then the faster they did it, the more they would do it. You'd start hearing it get louder. They said that apparently by doing this, they would make her, yeah, make her, see what she really was. And when they finished tying the knots, you'd hear her start to, like, I forgot what I think, not squeal. It was a certain word that she used, and I forgot what it was. But she'd like, you know make this sound, like this weird sound when she fell. And they said that my grandma told me, she goes, I hated that sound, sitting in the woods all night, and then just hearing her, that squeal it made when she fell out of the trees. And like, she told me that, and it was like, okay, that was not something that I expected to hear. Like, and then she had said, like, she hated doing that. She hated being there on those trips because, I don't know, for good reason. She didn't she didn't like that
Oh,
kind of stuff because she
wow.
wasn't the kind that would go. And she said that my grandfather made her go. She'd rather stay home and like stay with the chickens or something, but he made her go. And I don't know why. I'm not sure. Like, they were farmers, right? They were both farmers, and
Right.
but he made her go, and I'm not sure why. But maybe it was after they got married. I didn't get to ask her too many questions involving that because it. She also was she was kind of not so much dismissive, but she was like, yeah, you don't want to do that. The same way when I said I wanted to go hunting or I want to go fishing, I want to go doing this. She also, after she finished her story about, that's what they would do, she told me, she said, and they actually, and I talked to my mom, she said that they actually did hear her a couple of times. They were able to catch her, but they never saw who she was. That she would
Oh,
run
wow.
away before they were able to catch her. They were actually able to do that. But we weren't able to. My grandma and my grandfather have both passed away.
Mm.
And my grandfather passed away when I was like 6, and my grandma passed away a couple years ago. So, and
Oh, I'm
before
sorry to
then,
hear that.
oh, no, it's okay. She had dementia, and so it was getting harder to. So when, like, she'd mention every now and then little things would come out, and it's like, oh, like stories from the past that I'd never heard before or something.
Good deal. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. We'll talk about Lechuza. So, according to the legends and the folklore, from what I've read, Lechuza appears as a black owl, and oftentimes will have the face or head of a woman, or it can appear with a very white, plain-looking face. On a black owl, which I thought was very interesting whenever you and I talked about this in the group, because I kind of wonder if it doesn't tie in with something else that you're going to talk about here in a little bit. That,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So, and it's interesting that you said it was your grandfather or your great grandfather
my
that went.
grandfather and his father.
Oh,
It
okay,
was
so your
both of them.
grandfather and great grandfather used to go hunting for it, and were attempting to bind it so that they could find out who it actually was. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that surprised me too. It was because I just read some of, like, the online lore about it and stuff like that. When I read online, and when I told her, she told me this whole thing, and it was like, oh wow, like, that's different. And also, when she finished talking about it, the thing she told me, she gave me a warning about it, and I forgot how she said it, but it was something like, don't go looking, either don't go looking for it, or like be very careful with it. And she said it in a way, it's like, don't go looking for it. She said something like, don't go looking for it, it finds you. Like like it knows the family already. Like this is something, there was something about it, and she tried to say it, and I've known that's how she does it, because that's how she tried to, I don't want to say discourage, but this is how she tried to, like, don't do that. It's dangerous or something. Instead of saying, like, it's dangerous, don't do that. She tried to make it seem like it's not interesting. Don't do that. Like,
Right.
if you're gonna go like, fishing, you're gonna be bringing home a bunch of smelly fish, and then you're gonna have to gut it and clean it and cook. If you want to actually do something with it. And she was the one who had to do that part, so she didn't like it, right? And so she was saying, and she tried to, and that was what she said about La Lechuza, like, oh, don't, it's not very interesting, don't go looking. I said, after that story, you think I'm not going to find it interesting? But like that whole story, I didn't know anything about, and so it's like, my gosh, like it
It
was,
kind of
but yes,
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what my dad used to tell me whenever I was younger, and I used to go looking for stuff like this. Yeah, you better be careful what you go looking for. You just might find it.
yeah, yeah, and she'd say things like that, like you might find it. Like, you ever thought, like, going to look for that? What are you gonna do if you find it? Like, it's if you do
Yeah,
find it, like, and then,
yeah,
good point. I never thought about what I do. I just kind of didn't think I'd get that far.
yeah.
Or I guess
I
I didn't
think we
think
all
that far
kind of think
ahead.
that way. Right, right. Yeah,
Like, I didn't
it's
think that
always
far. Like, I didn't think.
it's kind of like going looking for a grizzly bear and all you got's a BB gun. Well, if you find it, then what?
Like, yeah, like if I find it, then you know what? Like, I didn't think that far ahead. Like, I didn't think that through.
Okay, so hey, we understand that you have a family tie in with the whole Lalakusa thing. So, if you want to go ahead, if there's anything else you want to tell us about.
I continue, and I had asked my mom this, if my grandfather had mentioned it to her, since it seemed like, by the way she talked about, by the way my grandmother talked about that sounds like it was something kind of big and important involving the family. I feel like he would have mentioned it to us at some point, but I was like 6 years old when he passed away, so he probably didn't say anything, and he was always working, so he probably didn't say anything to me or my brother, as far as I know. Or I don't also have a very bad memory. um so I asked my mom if he had ever brought it up to her or my aunt, and my mom did say she did, that he had told her some of it, and that they had actually managed to, and she'd confirmed that they did find her a couple of times. She said they were able to bind her, but they weren't able to see her. I think she got away before they were able to. They said she'd fall out of the trees, and even in my grandmother's story, she's mentioned how it fell, and like the sound it made when it fell, so they could hear it. But then as soon as, oh, excuse me, as soon as it did that, they would rush into the woods to go and find it. Like, it was in that direction, so they tried to go find her, but by the time they got there, she was already gone. So they weren't able to find her, but they had done this several times. They had actually succeeded in it, and then they'd go back, I think, and continue to tie knots, hoping they'd find her again. I don't know how long or how many times they did that. It seemed, the way my grandmother described it, it seemed like it was a somewhat normal thing they would do, like maybe not all the time, but like, a few times a year, I think. It seemed like it was like
Hmm.
like something they did. And it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna do this like for the first time. It was like, oh, this is something that they like more commonplace, something that they normally did.
I'm curious,
Um,
what was the point of doing that? I mean, yeah, you're going to find her, you're going to bind her, and she falls out of the tree, and then what?
that's the thing. I don't know what that was. Like, it seemed important. They said it was to find out who she was, and that's what, when I had asked, my grandmother said they were going to do that. Like, she explained the trip, and my mom said they were trying to find out who she was, but I don't know what the point of it was, and I don't know. Like, when I asked my mom, she said that she's not sure. That after a while he stopped talking about it,
Huh.
and he had mentioned it to her and my aunt, I think, when they were young, when they were really little, but when they were younger, but then he stopped talking about it. So I don't, unfortunately, I don't know. And I feel like, oh, it seems like those stories you see on TV or something like that, like those shows or something like that. So like, but why? What was the reason for this? Like, obviously it was something important that, and like, my grand, my, I never knew my great grandfather. I was like
Mm-hmm.
really little by the time he passed away, and
Right.
I never met him. He was already sick, and but from what I understand from stories I heard about him, he was not like he was a practical kind of man. He would like, this is what that is, and this is what we need to do. Like he wouldn't go like, "Ooh, we're gonna try to figure out." It's like he had like there had to have been a reason for him to have gone into the woods with his son and their friends. There has to have been a good reason for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure what that reason was. I don't know what they were trying to do.
Well, it's
I
a
don't know what they were
really
trying to do. Like
interesting story.
it is, and it's like I never understood that. Like I was thinking, like what, and then like oh my gosh, like I wish there's so many things that I wish I could have asked, like asked my grandfather about, like what was this, what was all that, like all these different things, and I think I forgot what my mom had told me. She said something, and I was talking to her earlier today, and she had told me something. I forgot what she said, but she said I think out of the two of us, me and my brother, and that's why my she said that's why my grandmother told me that why grandma told me that was because out of the two of us, me and my brother, that I'd be the one more likely to go looking for her. That I'd be the one to go. And my brother said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm fine. I have my job. I have I'm happy. I have my car and I have stuff. So like I don't need to. I'm not going to go to the woods looking for something." He said, yeah, and they were right. Like yeah, I am the one that's more interested in doing that. I want to go do that, and it's like
Right. Right.
although I'm
Oh,
not entirely sure.
that's very cool, though. That's very cool. I'm interested in the lore and stuff that comes from other cultures and other groups, and it's definitely like you guys. You've got La Llorona, which is basically a white woman who was. Or a woman in white, I should say, not a white woman, but anyway, a woman in white.
The white woman.
You got your own white woman. So anyway, so she's basically like all the other stories of the woman in white. She's I'm still laughing at myself. She's
That was funny.
this woman this this woman who's done wrong and done wrong by a man she was cheated on it or cheated on by him and everything. And then we've got the story of the woman in white who is by the side of the road, and she gets picked up by the guy in the car, and he's willing to cheat with, this good looking girl that he picks up and everything. So she punishes him, by causing him to go off the road, and he gets killed in a car accident. Or you have other stories of the woman in white, so it's cool that every culture seems to have that woman in white.
Yeah, actually, when you brought up that the woman in white, that was also something because I never heard really. My grandmother never told me a description of what La Llorona looked like. I just knew she was a woman who was always crying. It
Mm-hmm.
said she was always crying because she had killed her children. Although I was wondering, well, then why did you kill them? But um,
I
I
think it
mean,
was
like,
because her husband, I think according to the folklore, I could be wrong. I think according to the folklore, he ended up leaving her for another woman who didn't have kids. And she was so
oh,
distraught over it, she killed her kids, hoping that he would come back. And then when she realized what she had done, she killed herself at the same river.
oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense because I remember it had to do with. I know it had to do with her husband, but I thought it was more of like he was cheating on her. So I thought, well, then what's not? And at least that's what I thought. It's been a while since I heard that one though. Since I heard about the La
Right.
Llorona. But now that you mentioned that also, it's a I guess not connected to the Lechuza, but my mom told me about one of our cousins, and I forgot which one because we have a lot. Um, that she'd always come into the house when a few like years ago. I think we were not me and my brother. I think we're probably kids, like older than we were when my grandma would try to scare us, but or maybe we weren't born yet. I'm not sure. But she said that one of our cousins would run in scared, saying that ran into the house one night saying that like it's La Mona Blanca. She kept seeing her. She kept seeing her. A woman in white was staring at her from across the street. That she was
Mm,
there. Don't you see her? Don't you see her? My mom told me that I never bothered looking because that apparently that cousin was trying like liked getting attention, something like that, was trying to do some stuff like that. So
right.
my mom didn't believe her. She said you tend to make up stories and stuff, so I'm not gonna go looking. So she didn't. So we don't know so I don't know about that, but she said she did that multiple times and she always sweared. I think even now she still swears that she saw someone that day. But I'm not sure. Like it's I'm not sure like whether
Right.
that was like when I didn't see it, right, and it was just a story. I don't know how long ago that was. Um,
Hmm.
it was where
Yeah,
we
it kind
used
of
to
makes
live.
it hard whenever you haven't seen it too. We tend to be the people who are a little bit more skeptical. We're the ones who want to see it firsthand. It's great to hear the stories and everything like we're doing right now, but we always want to see it firsthand. We want to see La Llorona, or we want to see any of the others that are happening. We want to be in the forest when Bigfoot shows up.
Yeah, like I want to be. I want to see it. Like I don't want to just see like I don't want to just like see an article or just see like that. I want to actually be there and like, wow, like and like just like I wonder what like and I still wonder like I wonder what my like I wonder what it was like for my grandma that that she saw that like she heard it and she was like I didn't like it like I hated that. It's like I mean I can see why you wouldn't like it but I still think like my gosh you actually like that was a normal thing that you did. It's like shit. I wish I could have seen that like or maybe not with my luck
That's
I
cool.
probably would have been the one she attacked.
Probably not. Probably not. Okay, go
Probably not.
ahead. You got any more stories you want to tell us about?
Um continue on with I guess with La Lechuza with that one. And this isn't. I kind of. I didn't link. I hadn't thought about these things being together. During the freeze, in Texas, the Texas freeze when like we were without power for about 5 days, and like
Wow.
no electricity, and we were stuck inside because of the freeze, right? So we couldn't leave the house. We
Hmm.
couldn't do anything. Like no power. Our things like phones or laptops, all that stuff had died like a couple days before, and then my grandmother was already in the later stages of the dementia, so it was kind of and then without power it was hard to kind of try to keep try to make sure but so at night and as soon as it got dark and that happened pretty fast with the it was earlier in the year so it was nighttime happened a lot it got dark a lot faster um
Right.
during that time I'd seen a lot and we've been seeing that a lot and one of the things that I'd always see. This tended to be around the time, like right before she'd have one of her like episodes of like
Hmm.
freaking out, and um, that I would see someone standing in the hallway. One time I saw like a shadow run down the hallway. Like we didn't have anything else to do, so me and my brother were playing board games in the living room, and with a candle, and I saw someone run by. I thought no one else in the house like can no one in the house really besides I think maybe my brother can run that fast, but without making sound, it's not like that's not. Obviously, my brother was sitting right next to me, and it was a large shadow. It was like a man running or something like that, and he was ran in the direction of her room, and that was one of them. So I assumed that was a shadow person,
Hmm.
and there were there have been other instances my mom thought my mom had also and at another time and I forgot when this was that she had heard that she was saying her prayers around the house when she heard my grandmother talking and she said that she doesn't she know my grandmother knew not to when we were praying she wouldn't talk to us right because she knew we were praying and when she did she said that she heard my grandmother talking and she said but why are you talking like I had just told you right but then I don't remember when this at what time this was. But this was earlier on, so I don't think this was like earlier. This was before I think my grandma started showing heavy signs of being sick. Um, so she was wondering why would she do that, and she thought when she thought and my mom had seen like a shadow pass by, and she said it was probably your brother right walking by. She was so that's who she was probably talking to. She said that wasn't. She said that she didn't look right, but then she looked checked later and she asked her and she said, "What do you mean that when she asked my brother, she said I wasn't there. It wasn't him. So that was another instance. That was I don't really remember when we had just been seeing that. Like we've been seeing those a lot in random places, but during that freeze was when we would see them right before she would have an episode, and then
Mm.
that night, like later in the night, it was like really dark. It was like really late. It was already like maybe midnight around that point, and I'm not sure what the exact time, but it was already like later at night, nighttime, and I was going to the
Right.
kitchen to get something to get like a sandwich or something, um, and I was going to do that when I turn the corner and I see in the kitchen peeking out from the side is another shadow figure, but this one has a white mask and it looks like one of those like like those like I guess like stereotypical like theater masks where it's like the happy sad runs, right? And it was
Right.
completely white, and it was staring at me, like peeking from around like the the kitchen, like right by the fridge. They're like peeking out at me, and it stared at me.
Mm-hmm.
And like when we'd see them, whenever we would see them, it was already more common for us to have seen like, oh, it's a shadow person, like, oh, probably to see another one, right? And at that point, it was already getting more common. But this, and we see him for like a split second, and then it was nothing, right? It was gone. I saw this one for about, stayed staring at me for about, like, I was frozen when I saw it because it was closer. It was the closest I'd ever been to it when I saw it. It was like about maybe 5 feet away,
Oh wow.
or like maybe like 5 to maybe 6 feet away. It was a lot closer, and so I froze and I didn't blink. And in that, it was about my 2-3 seconds I saw it, and then when I blinked, it was gone. And then at that point, I
Oh, that's
decided that it better
crazy.
just. And so I figured at that point, it better just to go back into the room. And I didn't go into the kitchen at that point. I thought either two things are going to happen. One of two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to go into the kitchen and it's not going to be there, and I'm still going to be scared, or I'm going to go into the kitchen and it will be there, and I'm going to be even more scared. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going back to the room.
Turns
I don't need
turns
that.
out you
I
didn't
don't
need
need
a
that.
sandwich that bad after all.
I did not need that sandwich that bad. So like, I don't need a sandwich. You know what? I'm fine. I'm not hungry anymore. I'm good. I'm good. Um, that was the worst I'd ever seen one. Like that was the closest and the longest I'd ever seen one, and
Mm-hmm.
that one scared me so much. I went like back. I was like, okay, like I'm like I'm not going. I think when I went, if I had to go out again, like to do something, it's like, you know what, I want like my mom and my brother to come with me. You know, like I want them to come with me. We
Right.
didn't have any pets at that time either. I have a dog, and we have a few cats too. So we don't really see. I have noticed that my dog randomly barks and like things, but I don't know if he's just barking at other dogs outside or other cats or the cats we do or our cats now. But I haven't seen anything like that since then.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped around the shadow. That one came out a little before I think one of her worst episodes, and so I don't know
Oh.
if that had anything. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. That one freaked me out when like seeing that one, and then a little later the episode she had after that both of those instances freaked me out. Like so I was like, I don't know, like shaken up from that. And then I haven't seen that one ever. I haven't seen the one with the mask. I haven't seen that one ever since. It was just that one time, and so I
Yeah.
haven't seen
Have you
that one ever.
seen any of them since?
I don't think so. Not anymore. Because I was seeing it got
Okay.
to the point like we were seeing them like so often that it wasn't even really like, oh, like you look back again to see who it is. It's like it's probably another shadow. Like it's another. It got kind of like it got common, and it wasn't very. It's like it's probably another one. It never hit me. It didn't even hit me that maybe I should try to take a picture, or I should try. I don't know if it was come out in the picture, but like maybe I should try to do some kind of see if there's something I can do to like catch like proof that there was something there. It was just, and the whole family would see it. Like my brother, my mom, my aunt. Excuse me. We would all see them at different times in
Mm-hmm.
different places. I was the only one who saw the one with the mask, but
Oh,
it's
that's
that one still.
interesting.
I still remember it, and it was like, my gosh. I was still thinking like, I wonder what if I had like, I wonder like if I had walked towards it, or if I had instead of just standing there frozen, like, or if I'd stayed there longer, or if I tried to do like, would it have ever moved? It was staring at me, and it was the happy mask. So I don't know what that if that would mean anything either, but
I don't
um
know.
like I don't know what that one like what why or what that one would mean, but it was weird, like it was freaky. And then that was the last time I think I had seen one. I think before
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the last time I had seen one before she passed away. Um and then that she passed away later, right? But like a while later, like a couple years after that. But I don't know if I'd seen I don't know how long, that was the most like that one stuck out the most. Like maybe there were a couple more of like just passing by, just in the corners or
Mm-hmm.
something. But that one, those two, the one that was running down the hallway, because I saw the whole thing, like the whole body running down the hallway, and
That's,
and then
that's
that
really
one.
interesting.
But those were the only two times that I had seen, um, like them that much. That was during the freeze that had kind of kept everybody inside, um, and so that was during that time in particular. But like I don't know if that had anything to do with like the stories that she would tell us, because she warned us about other things, and like when we were younger, when we were kids, and she was still more and she was still fine, she would tell us to be careful, and to and that was something like when you mentioned like what are you going to do if you find it, like you might just find it. That reminded me, she would tell us that too, like what are you going to do if you do find like these monsters, or like these things that you like, these monsters that you talk about from the stories you see, like and that was
Hmm.
I never figured, I never thought about like what would I do. And I guess part of me never expected to see one like that. They'd come out at like it, I guess they just at weird times, but like it was weird seeing them like that. And I didn't have like the proper equipment, I guess, to go looking for to see if I could try to catch like any proof or anything like that of it, or I guess
Hmm.
think about if I could, if I hadn't thought about that. And while I was already interested in looking for these kind of things, I hadn't thought like, and it's more recently that I figured they were like that I started like finding out like learning about like shadow people and stuff like that. So I just didn't know what they were. I didn't have
Right.
like a name for them. I would just tell my mom like I saw something. And even my grandmother, even when she was sick, she would tell us this. She kept telling us that, and I don't know if maybe you might know more about what this is. She always told us that she saw a black cat, a big black cat. She would always see a big fat black cat. Now, we do have cats, but at the time we did not have, like, we do have a black cat now, and
Hmm.
she's relatively chunky, but we don't have, and it's not to the size that she described it as. We didn't have one at that time. But my grandmother always said there's a black
Hmm.
cat in the house. There's a black cat. She always told us about it. And I had always just thought, maybe she was sick, maybe she was, just, so I was like, okay, my room that I'm in right now, this like my room is the room she had. It was, it
Hmm.
was the room that she say she would see it in. She said she always saw it running into the closet. And so we agreed and said, okay, grandma, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine, it's gone. And more recently, it's been a few years, it's been a couple years now, I think, since she passed away. And you know it's a little unsettling because I've been seeing that cat too now. And so it's
Oh.
like, because I have too many wires and too many, like, I have my toys, my instruments, I have
Hmm.
things in my room that I don't want the cats, like, my pets getting to. So I don't, so the pets are not allowed in my room, especially when I'm practicing or when I'm trying to do my homework. And so we're not, I don't let, they're not in my, they're not allowed in my room. So there's nothing in
Right.
here. And I was sitting in here, and it's happened a few times now that I've seen a cat run by, a big fat black cat. And for a second it was too big to be the cat that I thought it was, like our black cat, because we do have a black cat.
Hmm.
It was too big to be that one, huh? But when I saw it for a brief second, I thought, how did you get in here? And when I looked, it looked towards my closet, where I saw it running in the corner of my eye. There wasn't anything there. There's too much stuff in my closet for it to hide behind. Like there's no way for it to, like, there's no way for anything to hide in my closet at this point. There's too much junk, and it's like
Okay.
a wall of junk. It's like it's kind of blocked off any like corners they can hide behind. There was nothing there.
So let me throw a couple of things out there to you. So you were asking about the black cat. The black cat, of course, historically and through folklore, has a tie with witches and witchcraft. Just
Oh,
like
okay.
owls do, just like owls do in like the Mexican culture and in folklore in Mexico. Um, so that could be, in a way, the same entity who was there before. It's just in a different form or different shape. If we're going through
Hmm.
folklore, so
Okay.
what it could appear as a shadow figure with a smiley face or whatever. By the way, that's comedy and tragedy, which are the two different
Oh, okay.
faces. So it could appear as that, or maybe it could appear as an owl, or maybe it could appear as a raven or something else like that. Uh, And the interesting thing about the whole closet, we talk about underneath the bed or in a dark closet, anywhere where you have a doorway is what we call liminal space.
Oh,
So
okay.
train tracks are liminal spaces because they travel from one spot to another. Highways, bridges, like I said, doorways, elevators, and we think that areas like that are kind of like weak points. So weak points in reality, have you ever heard the old saying, "Don't stand in the doorway; it's bad luck"?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I think somebody told me that." Some old person told me that whenever I was a kid. Don't stand in the doorway. Usually, it was because the old person wanted you to get the hell out of the way because you're standing in the doorway. But yeah,
And that's what I
there's
assume. It's like, just get out of the way.
yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both. But we have these liminal spaces, and we consider those to be weak points in reality between our reality and the other world, the spirit world. And these are usually, oddly enough, spots where we'll see something peeking around the corner. If it's in the dark, it's peeking around a doorway, or it's peeking from out of a closet, or we were always scared of the thing that was under the bed. Or you'll have a lot of modern accounts of people seeing something in a mirror. That's why whenever people pass away, usually all the mirrors in the house have to be covered up so that the spirit doesn't get trapped within the mirror. So the spirit is free to leave the house and leave and go to heaven or wherever it's supposed to go.
Hmm.
Now you talked about this thing was seemed to be almost showing up in relation to your grandma and what was
Yeah.
happening with her episodes and everything. And it may have even been that this had a certain connection to her. We see this a lot of times with people who are getting closer and closer to passing on.
Yeah.
And it could be that it's almost something that's connected to your family, where you said your brother has no interest in this, but you do. So maybe it's noticed you have an interest, you have a connection, and it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to hang out with you for a while. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if you can see
Oh.
me. Let's see how much of an interest you have, you know? And maybe it's something that's passed down from generation to generation, what we call a familial spirit. Something that just, maybe it doesn't mean harm. I don't know. That's between you and it. Uh, but chances are it's something that's been around and almost kind of been passed down like the good china. You'll also get this it's
This
hard
is
to put
also
it
something.
in the yeah, here's something else you get whether you want it or not.
Like it's gonna go to what, like, like one of you is gonna probably be interested in this. It's gonna follow one of you. Like it's
Yeah,
yeah.
you've
Like
you've
I don't want
inherited
this. Oh, you're gonna get it.
it. Yeah, so that's really interesting. That's really interesting, especially with your genetic and your family ties into Lechuza and stuff like that. Now she talked about La Llorona and La Lechuza. What else did she talk about?
She told my brother about La Llorona, and me and my brother even had conversations. Even now, we have conversations about, like, oh, Grandma told me this, or Grandma told me that. Like, apparently, we had heard she had told us different stories, like when we were little. And for my brother, she didn't mention too much La Llorona to me, but she mentioned it to my brother all the time. The one she told me about was one called El Cucuy. And when I asked my mom, I think she meant that's like Spanish for like the boogeyman or something like that. Like kind of not like a translation, but like that's kind of who that one was, because apparently she told my mom and my aunt the same stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so and the thing is that there wasn't. She didn't really tell me much about what El Cucuy did. That's why I think I got more scared, because she didn't say anything about it. She just said, if you don't go to bed, El Cucuy is gonna get you, right? And I thought, well, what's he gonna do? What's he look like? What's he gonna do if he gets me? What's gonna happen? Like, I don't know any of these things. And then she would go to bed and then not say it, and not say anything. And then I heard more.
Have you ever seen the there I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Have you ever seen
All
the
right.
series The Outsider?
No, I don't think so. But that name does sound
Okay, if
familiar.
if you ever get a chance to watch it, watch it because that exact entity that you were talking about pops up in that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Uh, yes, El Kukui.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So
Okay.
you might
Thank
want to
you.
check that out. I'll do a little bit of backup research, and on the group I'll post some stuff if I can find some stuff, decent stuff for you.
Thank
I've
you.
found some in the past, but yeah, yeah, that's what we're all about. We're all about learning. Uh, we're all students. None of us are teachers. We're all going to learn from each other on there, and we'll have fun. So, uh, what else? So, other than El Kukui, I know she mentioned a lot of other spirits and stuff. Probably.
She told me, I forgot what it was. She said, ah, she had mentioned this one. I think she told more to my brother. I guess maybe she was more worried that my brother might be, if that's like which one of us would be interested in it, because we were both pretty little at that time. I guess she was trying to see if which one of us would be interested in it. She
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, my brother also mentioned. I think she told us both this one. My brother told me more. I guess he asked more questions about it. She told me about something called la mano pachona or something like. And I'm not entirely sure what I know it's a hand, and she said I think that it would come out from under the bed and would grab you. I think if you were bad or something,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and I think and I'm not sure because I heard two stories about a hand, and I know I was researching one of them, but I'm not sure which one it was. That one of them was like a one of them it would grab you if you were like a bad kid, and then the other one would just grab you no matter what. And I don't remember why. I think one of them was supposed to drag one of them. Like it doesn't matter. Like I don't care if you're a good kid. I'm gonna grab you anyway. Like, um, one of them didn't care. I think one of them meant that it was a. I think my mom said one. I think that one means that it was hairy or something like that. My mom said it was like a hairy hand or something that would come grab you. It was like, but and I forgot if it was supposed to like take you somewhere, it was supposed to drag you to hell. I'm not entirely sure what it did after that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the other stories are a little bit more like fuzzy. She didn't go into much detail
Right.
about those, but she always told me she told us about a lot of these things, and the same like warning, be careful what you go looking for, be careful with that. She had also one more thing she also told me, something we had heard a lot at the time. I thought like for a while before she told us this part about la lechuza was that she said something that if it's chosen you, that you'll hear scratching at the door because it's trying to let you in. It's trying to get you to let her in. And we would hear scratching at the door all the time, but I thought it was like, one of the neighborhood cats or something else. I'm not saying it wasn't one of the neighborhood cats, but that's also something that it could have also like, you know, I'd hear it like really late at night, but like, even now the neighborhood cats don't scratch our door. Like sometimes our cats do that, but like from the front door on the outside, none of our cats are outside cats. None of our pets, are out we let outside, and unless like I walk my dog, but like I don't leave him outside overnight. I don't we don't let our cats outside. They're inside cats. And at that time we didn't have cats. But none of them we would hear scratching at the door, and I'm not sure if that was also something or not with that, but it was something that she had also mentioned.
So
Um
I have to ask this because everybody will be like, "Why didn't you ask this?" So when you heard the scratching at the door, did you open the door?
No, I did not open the door. It was like at midnight. I'm not gonna like like it would always be really late at night, and I mean I don't even open the door when it's people I know at the door. So like like I'm not. There was always something like it's not going to be. My mom and my mom and my grandma had actually always told us like our families, like my mom, my grandma, my aunt, I think even my grandfather always said, don't open the door if you don't know who it is. Don't be careful, right? And I don't know, maybe
Right.
maybe that's why they were warning us because of that, or because I said I think, and I forgot if it was in either the lore that I heard or in what my grandmother had told me, but that if it's a lechuza, she's trying to get you to let her in. So you open the door, you're letting her inside. Whether something is there or
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not entirely sure. If she's actually physically there waiting for you to open the door, so she'll jump at you, or if it's like you open the door and that like is the like allowing her to come in. I'm not sure, but like
Right.
I didn't want to look out the window. I didn't want to see if there was something there or not. Like I'm not gonna do that. Like because like the bathroom was right next to the front door, so it's like I'm not
Yeah.
like so I'd pass by it in the middle of the night when I was going to the bathroom, and so I'd see that's when I'd hear it. So it's like, what? Nope. I'm not even gonna look. I'm not gonna look. I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna finish my stuff over here and not look. Like it's either
I
a
think
cat
it's
or
really
it's something
interesting
bad.
how, yeah, I think it's really interesting how a lot of the old stories with spirits almost kind of tie in with the vampire, where, he can't get into the house unless you invite him in. And then the spirit
Yeah,
has the same thing where, it'll scratch at the door and, maybe it's trying to trick you to where you'll open the door and be like, hello, or can I help you, or something like that, to where you end up
yeah,
letting it in.
yeah,
I think that ties in with a lot of paranormal research too, where people aren't very careful about what they say whenever they do research. It's not necessarily, the Ouija board altogether that is the problem. It's the wording that they use, where they're, because you always see in the movies where people are like, well, is there anybody here? You're asking a really vague question that maybe you need to choose your words a little bit better. So maybe, that's what our ancestors were trying to tell us. You need to be a little bit more careful with what you say and what you do, and, you know, as far as those
yeah,
spirits go. But very
yeah,
interesting stories. Very interesting. I find that really interesting how it all ties in with your family, and especially with your grandmother, and about the period of time where she was getting closer and closer to passing away. It was very interesting.
yeah. That was like, yeah, that was it was very, and I hadn't actually put those things together until I was, talking to you about it, telling you about the things, because for me those were separate instances. The her telling me the story about La Lechuza, the stories she would tell me and my brother to scare us, and
Mm-hmm.
then the things that we started seeing. And lately I've also been seeing a white cat too. I'm not sure about the white cat. I was gonna mention because I tend to see two. I see the black one. I usually just see the black one, and now and then lately I've been starting to like see a white one, kind of run after it. But
Well, that would be definitely something you want to keep an eye on. Maybe it's, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Maybe it's your grandma's spirit trying to run
mm,
off the evil spirit.
yeah, yeah, because I didn't see, and like I never saw the black cat when she was when she was here, but after I started, and this is like, that's the same room, right? My room is the room she had was her room, um, like the room I'm in right now. Um,
Yeah.
I would see and I've been seeing the black cat. Now, more recently, I've been seeing a white one chasing after it, and I do think that was interesting. That's a good idea. That is something, because my grandma did prefer cats over dogs, and after getting my puppy, I kind of realized why. I love my dog, but he's kind of like a he really likes like he really likes to make a mess.
That's puppies for you. Puppies do that.
It
they
was
they
really
chew
cute.
on everything and they pee everywhere.
We made a game. Said he likes to play a game called Hide and Go Pee.
I
That's what
think
my
that's
mom told
probably a puppy's favorite game.
me. He really likes that one. But yeah, that would um we don't have any completely white cats. Like, you have a couple of calicos, but they're like mostly dark, like mostly black or orange and stuff like that,
Hmm.
or at least half and half. But like this is a completely white cat. Looks just like, it's and I've seen it a couple times. I haven't seen it nearly as often as I've seen the black cat, and I haven't seen it much recent. Like, I think I've seen it a couple times. Excuse me. This semester, the black cat, but it was also the white
Hmm.
cat was chasing after it. So
So you said you had some interest in some other things like Big Bird and forget, I think it was El Chupacabra and some other stuff like that you had some interest in.
yeah, uh, the Big Bird, because its location is the Rio Grande Valley, for where it says that it's been seen, and even my mom told me, yeah, that she would always hear stories about Big Bird, and I forgot, my aunt told me a story that they had actually seen a very large bird with wings like land, and she told me that she was with one of her coworkers, and they were driving she was driving her coworker home or something that night, um And she said that while they were doing this, she had gotten down because something had happened, so they needed to go. She needed to get down too at their house, and so she went there with him or something. She went there with her. I forgot which coworker it was. With them, and as they were unlocking the door, they said they had seen something on the side of the road while they were driving, but they weren't sure what it was. It said it was big and it had wings, and they weren't sure what it was. But they drove past it; they didn't know what it was. And she said that when they were, I think, uh, when they had gotten to the house that they were getting down, that she had heard something hit like slam on the car. She had heard something slam and it freaked them out, and they both ran inside. Later, eventually, she said that there was nothing there. She didn't see anything, but
Mm,
she said that her friend said that he turned back when they were running in. He turned back and he said he saw a bird on top of the car on the hood that was very big, like the size of a human, with its wings like kind of more stretched out a little bit, and well, not stretched out, but like kind of more not like completely tucked in, but like I guess ruffled. And he
right.
ran in. They both. I forgot who it was, but they said that they both ran and screamed. But that one turned around to see what it was, and my aunt didn't. And and they did that, and eventually, they took a while. I think he didn't go. Her coworker didn't do it. Didn't like look out anymore. And when it was time for her to go, she went out and she ran to the car and she drove back. And she said that it was farther out in like the ranches where there's barely anything. I
Uh-huh.
think like there's more like it's not so much where there's barely anything, but like there's a lot, like we live near the college, so there's like a lot of there's a lot of buildings, there's like neighborhoods and stuff like that, relatively in apartments, like really close together. But this was one of them that lived more out in the country, where there's more like fields between houses, and like or like the houses are nearby each other, but there's mostly open fields until you get to like certain places, until you start getting closer to the
That's
actual
that's
like within the cities.
that's really interesting because that story itself sounds a whole lot like some of the early stories of the Mothman.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I've heard a little bit about. I mean, I've heard about the Mothman, but I haven't looked in too much into the story, because the Mothman isn't like the Mothman's not nearby, so I'm not able to go like looking for that one right now.
Right,
So I haven't. So I've heard the
right,
stories
right.
of them, but I haven't heard like a lot of them. Huh?
Hmm. So do you find that you have time to get out and look for these different things that you're interested in?
I am not. I do have some time to look for them. My job kind of allows me to do that. I kind of work more for like kind of like I do a lot of driving with my work. I go to like different truck stops and stuff. Um,
Good.
Not a trucker, but like I kind of it gives me a lot of free time to be on the road and to go looking for things that, like while I'm still like need to be in certain places. I still have school that I'm doing, but what is it? While I'm still doing that, I can actually find that job kind of gives me the time to like, hey, I'm driving over here. Maybe keep some stuff with me in case I find something while I'm out and doing this. Not like the most like I'm gonna be able to spend the whole weekend or like to go and make trips, but I've been able to go, and my aunt's actually been taking me to. We've been like she's been finding places that we can go on like hikes for, and so I get to go do that. And I think my aunt was one too that really likes to do that kind of stuff too.
Well,
And
that's really good.
so so she's been helping me. So she's been and she's been helping me look forward to. My mom said, I think that is like the same thing like with me and my brother. It's like one is more interested than the other, right? My mom
Hmm.
said, "Be careful. You might actually find something. So be careful." But I'm not gonna go looking for it. Like she didn't want to. Like she was interested earlier on, but then she was really interested in it, and she had done the research and she was going to go looking, but she had like work, and then she had a more like job that kind of like a more like a 9 to 5 job that she had to stay with, and they kept her in a certain place. And then with me and my when I was having my brother and then having me, she was like I want to make sure that I have this, and so she didn't really go looking for it. My aunt had more free time after she was she would do work, but then she's like, what, I'm going to go do this. And like me, she made her job kind of she looked for her job to kind of in a way that sets her up more for either going to travel to find these things or sets her more with free time to go looking for him.
That's really cool.
So
That's really cool. All right. Well, hey, I'm really glad that you decided you want to come on here and you want to talk with me for a little bit. I appreciate it. And I think we've had a lot of fun, and looking forward to having you back in the future, especially if anything else happens with your cats or your shadow people or, any of those other things like that. I'd really like to hear from you on the group, or, we might have you back in the future. How does that sound, Kimmy?
yeah, sounds good. I'd love to. Thank you for having me on, and I'd like to come back.
Absolutely. Hey, hang around for a few minutes after I end the show, and we'll talk.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Give me just a second. Hey guys, I really appreciate you showing up and listening to the second episode of Monstrous. Uh, if you are not a member of the group on Facebook yet, look us up in Facebook groups, Monstrous. We start out as Monstrous Arkansas, and we've expanded. We are now doing, of course, this podcast that you're listening to. We talk about everything: the paranormal. We talk about supernatural. We talk about cryptozoology, folklore, everything, anything that is a little bit paranormal, supernatural, and everybody wants to talk about, and everybody thinks we're all a bunch of weirdos for listening and talking about it. Hey, come on there with us. We're a bunch of weirdos, and we want to talk with you, so we'll have a bunch of fun. So I really appreciate everybody coming in and listening to the show, and we'll be back next month. And I think you'll enjoy the show we're supposed to have next month. We're going to be talking about places of power with Amber Bowden Vance, our TikToker. So we'll see you then. And everybody have a great day. And